Now our next session is very, very special. We all are joined by a leading producer who's behind some of our most beloved shows, first on TV and now on OTT platform. He will be joined by a legendary film critic whose taste in film and content informs the opinions of his many readers. They both will talk about the role of OTT in influencing the content preferences in our country. Yes, I feel immense pleasure to welcome on stage Applause Entertainment CEO Mr. Sameer Nair in conversation with the film critic and Dharma Cornerstone Agency COO Mr. Rajeev Masand, both on stage, please. Can we have the honor of having a big applause for both of them?
Samir, this session has been described as art of creating diversified content and secret of mastering them. You know, Samir, you've had this incredible journey. Of course, first on linear television, Star Plus, where you really kind of upended the landscape, whether it was with soaps like Kyunki Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahu Thi, or then of course KBC, this juggernaut. And now, what, roughly 25 years later, 22 years later, your Applause Entertainment, you're at Applause, which has sort of emerged this leading content studio. So I feel like one really must start by asking, where do you sort of see the business headed, or really the ecosystem headed? Do you see streaming as being what will replace linear television?
Well, hello everyone. Nice to be here. Thank you, Anil. Thank you, Vidnet. In the last 4-5 years, the streaming business has really grown.
Yeah.
And the global streamer is I think the single biggest revolution that's happened to our content business. Yeah. TV obviously was the big juggernaut. Yeah. It's been there for the last 30-40 years. For India, we've seen it since the early 90s, satellite TV. And it's grown up to what I think about 200 million homes, which is a really big number. Yeah. And it's got all kinds of content and all of that. But TV was fundamentally always limited by its nature, right, which is it's a linear medium. It's got geographic boundaries. It's got language boundaries. It's got time slots, that kind of thing. The internet, of course, is the ultimate infinite universe. Right. And streaming is essentially TV on the internet. So I think that's been a big revolution. And all the content that you put onto a streamer remains there forever. Right. It can be viewed anywhere in the world. So it's very different medium. Right. So I think that's the big revolution. It's totally changed the way content can be made. Of course, these are teething troubles because these are early days. Yeah. I think everyone is trying to find their own business models. You've got to look at streaming in the context of TV. Right. That in the early 90s, I don't think anybody would have thought that TV would become such a big business. Yeah. Today, the business is, the media entertainment business is some 70, 80,000 crores. Yeah. In the early 90s, I came into TV at that time, and it was really, we were throwing cables and connecting homes kind of thing. Right. So similarly, now the streaming business, 30 years later, imagine where it could be. You're talking about phones out there, 5G connectivity coming, low data cost, hungry customers, and this streaming revolution. Right. So I think going forward, this is genuinely going to be a really big business. Right. Along the way, there will be challenges. There will be problems. We will learn how to make content better. Right. I guess everyone is learning how to do this. At this point in time, we have the advantage of learning from how content is made abroad, how we can improve our own storytelling, how we can take our content to travel to other markets. How budgets can be better. So I think it's a process,
So what's been some of the biggest sort of discoveries as you sort of embarked on creating content for this sort of exciting new medium, if you like?
I think the biggest discovery or the biggest learning for us has been writing. Everyone always talks about this, that, that if we were given a chance, we could do something. Right. And, that not enough people are getting opportunities or chances. But what we found is that if you've written it well, and if you've written it in a detailed manner, and if you can imagine it, then you can probably shoot it, right? And I find that oftentimes, whenever things have gone wrong for us or have not been as good, you can always trace it back to the writing, right? So I think that's been the biggest learning, that it's not a star cast, it's not a big name director, it's not a budget. Right. It's really in the writing. So if it's written well, and if you've spent that time, you've really, blood, sweat, toil has gone into that. Chances are it may turn out okay.
Right.
Of course, now audiences might still not like it. You might still
Sure.
get panned, and all that will happen.
Sure.
But by and large, so I think that's been a key learning. After that, sort of everything falls into place. The other thing about this whole business is that it's not star dependent.
Right.
So we've done some 36 series so far,
Yeah.
and it's been primarily a collection of ensemble casts.
Right.
So like in many ways, the streaming business is like the IPL.
Right.
Everyone gets to come and do their stuff. It's not that one national team that you got to make it to.
Right.
And it's not daily soap television either. So it's, you get a chance, you come do your Tevatya moment and get on with it.
Right.
Become a smash hit kind of thing. And you are working with international people, domestic people, doing good work. So I think those have been the two key learnings.
What does it take to greenlight something? How do you know this is something that's worth pursuing and this is not? Can you, in sort of a nutshell, describe the process? I'm guessing, and especially again, given that you've delivered such massive hits and such popular shows, I suppose everyone's interested to know, how do you know what is worth pursuing?
Actually, the thing is that there's no green light moment.
Okay.
What really happens is that we hear ideas.
Yeah.
Idea sources can be all kinds. It can be somebody comes up with some new original idea. Somebody recommends a book. We find a foreign series that we want to adapt. Somebody says, here's a movie, let's make this movie. Different ways of getting it. So I guess the first moment, of course, is liking that idea. But after that, I think it's a journey. The journey to greenlight is a little away from that moment.
Right.
So I think going from idea to screen is a process and it takes time. And there's a lot of hard work and effort that goes into it, and a lot of iterations and a lot of blind alleys, a lot of missteps. Oftentimes we write stuff and we hate what we've written.
Right.
So we have to rewrite it. Sometimes you put everything together and it still doesn't come through. So I think, finally, before you start filming, there's a considerable passage of time.
Right.
Like Scam, for example, it was a process. It took its time. We got the book rights, then we got Hansal, then we started working on it. There was originally one producer, Sharik Patel,
Right.
and Sharik then went off to join Z, then it went to another producer, then that producer left, so it went to a third producer, and then finally ended up with Studio Next.
Right.
Meanwhile, Hansal went off, he made Chalang, he was creative director on Accidental Prime Minister.
Correct.
Many things were happening. Then we cast Pratik, but Pratik was too thin. So, he had to spend the next 6 months drinking beer and becoming fat. So stuff was going on. And all through this period, this journey, we stayed the course. Like at no point did we ever decide that we are not going to do this.
Sure.
So Scam, from the moment we bought the book rights from Sucheta to the time it released, was 3 years. Right? So that's a long time and a long process.
Sure.
And I think that's the important thing. That green light is not a moment. You meet somebody, they give you an idea, you say love it.
Right.
But it doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Right.
Because you have to now take it across the line.
Have there been ideas that have come to you that didn't sound appealing at the pitch stage and have gone on to work for someone else who developed them?
I don't know. Not that I am aware of, but I'm sure. We keep hearing these stories. Our business is filled with all these urban legends.
Right.
Of, this one refused that, and look what happened there, and this happened. But I don't know. Not that I'm aware of,
Okay.
but I'm sure it must have happened.
Sure. Samir, Scam, of course, was the show that really kind of launched Sony Live. Sony Live was fledgling at the time. It became the tentpole that drove that streamer. I know that you of course famously work where you create you shoot your shows, you make your shows, and then you go on to sell them. But is there a thought process is this could land here? Are you kind of checking viability, checking what streamer this might be right for, at least internal kind of. What is when you're planning a show, do you have some idea of where you think or hope that it'll land?
Not really. Obviously now 5 years on, we have we are friends with a lot of platforms.
Of course.
They know beforehand what we are doing. But when we first started out, it was really making shows for audiences.
Right.
So that's what we are doing it for. And a lot depends on over time, all platforms also gain their own character. They gain their own identity. Like what happened with TV.
Yeah.
So in the old days, if you remember in TV, we would say things like, this is a very Star Plus show, or this is a very Z show, very Sony show. So they were just sort of things that happened.
Right.
I think over time, platforms also, this is something we would never do, or this is something we would do. So I think it'll evolve in that manner. When we are doing it, we don't really have that much of a platform theory as much as trying to, understand, what sort of genres to go after,
Right.
where are programming trends headed, what are people watching more of or less of. Now, of course, we get a lot of input from platforms themselves because they have so much data, they have so much understanding. So I think a lot of this is connected to essentially social signaling.
Right.
So we spend a lot of time listening. Just listen.
Sure.
So anyone's got anything to say, I'm very curious.
Right.
So I'm always happy to hear about anything. And then you get a lot of ideas from there, which direction to go.
Right.
The other, of course, big thing that makes decisions is the scale.
Yeah.
So you have an idea, but at what scale are you going to make it? So is this going to be a really expensive show, or is it going to be, that's a decision because obviously in the nature of the way we work, is that it's full risk, right? Because we make the whole series and then we go to a platform and then we show it to them and if they like it, they take it. So it is a bit of a risky business. So we have to plan it better. We have to be really sure about what we are doing. We have to be really sure about the casting, the writing, the genre, the amount of money we are spending on it, that kind of thing.
At any given point, how many shows are in production or at various stages?
In general, I think we've been averaging at about between 12 and 15 releases.
Yeah.
So in order to do that, we should have at any point in time 12 to 15 shows in production of some kind and or in writing and development. So it's a process. It's a pipeline. So we always have lots of stuff in development. Lot of that stuff moves into pre-production and production. It gets ready, post, platform, showing, releasing, and subsequent seasons, season 2, season 3, new shows. So it goes on. It can be tiring sometimes. So we try and make it fun, and we try and be happy, and come every day to work and say, you're going to change the world, make a dent in the universe, those kind of things. But yeah.
So why does this model where you make the show and then sell it to the studios or the streamers, work best for you?
But actually, in a way, what we are trying to do also is be a complement to the platform business. The platforms, in any case, have got much bigger battles to fight. They've got to win subscriber wars, they've got to gain subscribers, they've got to get them to pay, they've got to market, they've got to do so many things. So in a sense, we are like we are here to help in that sense. So a lot of the hard work that goes into creating content. See, any series to be made is going to take you between 18 to 24 months. It's a given. If someone thinks that you can make a series in 6 months or 8 months, it's a fallacy. It's not going to happen. So that 18 to 24 months, all the effort, all the writing, the disappointments, the rewrites, all of that is something we do. We then finance all of that. We finance the production. We take the casting decisions. We take directorial decisions, scale decisions. We take all those. So finally, when the platform is seeing it, it's really a yes or no. If you like it, you take it. If you don't, you don't. So I think in that sense, it makes it easier. It's a help. They're in any way commissioning their own shows. So if a platform commissions a show, they have to anyway go through the same process. So it's not like the process is going to be any different. So I think we are trying to solve for a pain point that platforms, when you think about it, if there are, say, 10 key platforms, and if a platform has to significantly succeed in a market, they should be putting out at least 2 or 3 pieces of content per month. So that becomes like per platform about 36 into 10 is 360. This could be movies and shows. It's a lot of content, right? So, we are a small part of this, like we are just contributing whatever to this greater effort.
You said in passing, streamers, of course, have their own problems to worry about subscribers. And it sort of brings me to the question that, which is the big news of the week, of course, with what's happened with Netflix and their stock price going down and having lost approximately 200,000 subscribers in the first quarter. How does something like that impact the content creators?
You know what? Now, this, of course,
it's brand new.
News. I think this question is there that, how is the streaming market going to work? Everyone loves to say that Indians don't pay. So, therefore, we love free content or we like to pirate. And that's just how Indians are, cheapskates, but that's not true. Also, like the way the market is growing is that there are many players. Streaming is a future mode of consumption. The debate is around the kind of content and the price point, That's really the key. And then, of course, it depends on, how the whole entire market dynamic works. So using any one player, even if they are the leaders, as a sort of a bellwether for the entire industry and ecosystem may not be the right way to do it. Because, different businesses have different sort of models. So why is the stock market reacts to some information would be different for different companies. What larger peer players are doing is that they have very, very long investment horizons. They have very long investment cycles, and they have very diversified businesses, right? So they have TV, and they have film, and they have streaming, and they have sport, and they have theme parks, and they have e-commerce, and they have petrol. So then that becomes a very different dynamic, right? As compared to we do only streaming. So I think there are many things to play. But on a macro level, when you think about it, 5G is around the corner. If you take just India itself, we've got up to about 600 million 4G connections. We've got to about 600, 700 million smartphones. This number can only increase. Like if you just look at it that way. So can the number of phones go down? No. Can the number of data connections go down? No. Will more people consume content on an individualistic basis on a smaller screen? Yes. YouTube has got to 400 million daily active users. It's a streaming device. It's a streaming platform. TikTok is so all of that stuff. So I think that genie is out of the bottle. So that's going to happen. Now, along the way, there will be discovery. There will be discovery of models. There will be discovery of ad-supported, subscriber-supported. There will be discovery of what kind of content, lower end of the market, upper end of the market. Which is a process. And from a content creator point of view, obviously there's an audience out there. They have a piece of glass in front of them. They want to push play. Something's got to play. That's where we all come in, and everyone will do different things.
What, Samir, are some of the sensitivities involved when you're adapting or remaking sort of international shows? Because you've done a few. Of course, you all did Criminal Minds, and you all did Call My Agent and Rudra most recently. Why is that a popular format? I mean, I know it's one of the things that you all do. You'll of course adapt books as well. You do original content as well. Why is the remake space exciting, and what are the sensitivities involved when you're remaking?
Well, I'll tell you why when we got started, it was really done as a speed to market.
Sure.
Because it takes time to write and to really get it, get the writing perfected. It makes sense to adapt something where in many ways, the heavy lifting is already done. They've already written a show, they've already written up the plot, the format, all of that is already done. From an adapting point of view, we call it reimagination rather than adapting. And a lot of it depends also on who we are working with. So one thing what I've found now, having done 6 or 8 of them, is that every director and every writer and every actor brings their own take to it. So like when we do an adaptation or reimagination with Sudhir Mishra, it's considerably different from doing it with Inivas. It's quite different from doing it with Nagesh Kupnor, right? They all have their own little worldview and their take on what it means. Then of course, it is being, somebody told me this, I was speaking to Danish Hussain, who said that, it's really important. I mean, the reason why great stories exist is because they should be retold, right? That's why we are always retelling Shakespeare and Mahabharata, right? We're always retelling it. We're trying to tell it to a new audience, to a new context, to a new milieu. That's why we retell them. The sensitivities usually are that sometimes some of the shows that we do, they may come from Western or, Middle Eastern or Korean or wherever backgrounds. And so it's really not tweaking for sensibility, tweaking for cultural context. Some things work better for us, some things don't work better for us. So what we try and do is we try and straight true to the original plot, right? And then build around it. So add characters, remove characters, change things around. And it's actually, I get this question a lot, why adaptation? It's an odd question, because it's been done forever. In the past, in the 80s, Bollywood was remaking every single, film from South India. People's careers have been built on that. Martin Scorsese got his Oscar for The Departed, which is a movie called Infernal Affairs from Hong Kong. Lal Singh Chadda is around the corner. That is Forrest Gump. So I think we waste way too much time in agonizing over why adaptation as much as, retelling of a story and giving it to an audience and getting on with it.
How do you measure the success of something that you put out, especially when it comes to streaming? Is it purely data driven and data, based on the data, which itself is kind of sketchy in this, when it comes to streamers?
Well, actually, the data for the streamers is not sketchy.
Right, not to them.
They know way too much about
Right,
everything.
right,
But yeah, for us, it's sketchy. So I think our sort of, no, our, our benchmark is the streamer happy? That's one good way to go. Are they going to do a second season?
Right.
What has been the sort of, social noise around it? Have the reviews been good in general? Are people happy? Are audiences happy? And those are the kind of parameters we go for. And you go from there. But I think streamers get a lot more data. They have a lot more information about how it's done. They look for things like, obviously existing subscribers, completion rates, new subscribers added, drop-off points, and they have all sorts of things. So oftentimes from streamers, we do get, these kind of debrief sessions, where they say, and at this point you lost everyone, So of course, then when you're looking at that point, there's nothing in it. So you don't know why you lost everyone, but
Is there a different muscle you're applying when you're making movies, which you're doing currently, of course? Does it require just a different muscle, a different discipline?
yeah, I think, listen, movie, we have a culture, we have a tradition of making movies for 100 years.
Yeah.
So when we are making movies, we are also working with people who have made movies. They are familiar with the matter. They come with different kinds of ideas. It's not trying to invent anything. It's been done. Now it's a question of who are you working with, what's the quality of writing always, and how are you going to package it? Is it theatrical? Is it straight to platform? All of that. Series is a totally different animal. See, with India, what happened is that we never had our HBO Showtime moment. TV went,
We went straight from linear to
yeah, and also TV itself there was a time in the late 90s, or even if you look at during Doordarshan, there's some excellent content that was created at the time. But from 2000 onwards, fiction on TV went down the Sasbo route, and it's pretty much there. So it's still going on. So when this thing came about writing 10-episode premium drama series, also called cinematic television, we are, in a sense, ill-equipped for it. We haven't written like that. We write movies, which is start, middle, end, or we write soaps, which never end. But the series, in this manner is a bit of a trick. But we are getting there, we are learning, we are finding out. The advantages this time around, most of the creative community has seen series. It's not that they don't know, it's the discipline of it. Movies becomes, in that sense, I would say that movies is a simpler medium because we have been doing it. It's not like we are an inexperienced country. The creative community is supremely, sort of, and of course, all of creative output is, chancy. That is there, that, at the end of the day, there is an audience out there, which is why our tagline is, it's not entertainment if there's no applause, right? So the thing is that we may still make a sale. You may still, be able to license it somewhere, but people must like it. There has to be applause.
When it comes to the films, is it going to be theatrical? Is it going to be for streaming? What is the way forward?
I think a bit of both. We first started out, so we were just sort of, warming up to it. So we've done a collection of what can be called smaller, cleverer, high concept kind of movies. We're working with a lot of debutants, not debutants in age, so some of them are pretty old, but first time filmmakers in that sense. And we're doing interesting stories. I think as we go along from here, there will be a combination of theatrical, streaming, depending. I mean, I think we are also sort of finding our way around it. Industry is just coming out of a pandemic. Theater chains are merging. All of that is going on. We've had 2 or 3 big monster hits, one after the other. There's a big backlog of movies. So I think this is going to be a really interesting time for the movie business. I think it's going to be an interesting time for the streaming business. And I'll be curious to see how this all plays out.
So since we're here, I feel like there'll be people who definitely want to know, if one wanted to pitch a show or a film to you, how does one go about it? I mean, I'm guessing this is something that the creative community would want.
Actually, it's really simple because there's an email ID, so my email ID. So you can just write to me and we can go from there. One sort of piece of advice for all of this is that, because we hear this a lot, that how do we pitch and how do we get things going. So one thing that we can definitely do, and it's the cheapest thing to do, is to write, right? Because writing involves essentially a laptop or a keyboard and typing, and man hours, woman hours, whatever, right? I really urge and tell everyone that spend more time doing it. Don't send, sort of, I have an idea. Here's the synopsis. If you like it, pay me money and then we'll write more. Try not to do that because the more you write and the more detailed and the more specific and the more layered and the more you've done it all. Now, of course, there is this theory that, oh, there are going to be changes later, so why bother now? But that doesn't then really mean creative conviction, right? That means if you are already you have an idea and at the first stage of it, you're already anticipating there are going to be 1,000 changes, so why bother now? Then that's not an idea, it's a project, right? So I think the best way to do it is to write as much as you can, right? Get as much, and that's technically free. If you're a writer, then it's free. You're just doing it, you can do it in your downtime, you can do it whenever. So that when we are reading it, it makes for a simpler decision. I, of course, have gone one step further and we get it written and we produce it and show it to platform.
That's right.
So that's living more dangerously. But in the meantime, you can at least write it to great detail so that it comes alive off the page. That also, like now, in fact, I tell you, it's happened to us just recently. I met this actor on a shoot. We had just gone there for the rap, on the last day for the rap party. In conversation, he told me that there's something he's been developing with a writer. I said, okay, sounds interesting. Let's meet and talk about it. The next week they came to office. We heard the first episode. I immediately told a larger team. They came the next week. We heard 3 episodes more. The writer has already written all 10 episodes. We've greenlit it. We hope to shoot in June. So this is like going from March to June very quickly because actually the material is already done. We are not, he's already written it. He's imagined the world. He's imagined the characters. He's got everything down. So that's like a dream scenario as compared to getting, a 20 lines synopsis saying that, if you pay me, I'll think more.
But you read, is what you're saying.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. We read. We love reading.
I'm constantly being told the time's up. So let me ask the last question. Samir, I feel like you ask anyone what are their favorite shows, what's the one that they love, and more than likely Indian shows, more than likely, some of the ones that you made will pop up. Is there a show that you saw that made you go, I wish we'd made this?
Local?
Indian show, yeah.
So many. Yeah. Delhi Crime, Mirzapur, Gullak, we just heard. There are so many. In fact, whenever people ask me, what's your favorite show, I got a new favorite every week.
Of course.
Like just now, last night I finished watching this Anatomy of a Scandal. So it's like, it's like really well made, and that's not so much the story as much the telling of it. So it's like pretty, so yeah, there are so many shows. Yeah. I'm always watching these shows and thinking, oh, that's nice. We should have done that. Everything actually.
I feel like I have to ask at the end, and it's one of those lofty questions. What do you see as the future of content play in India? What do you? Is it very hard to predict given how nascent the streaming business is?
No, as I'm saying is that I think this streaming business will grow. I think all the language content will become more pan-Indian. It will because we are able to consume it easier. So the audience for this content will grow more. I think we as content creators will learn to make better and better content. At some point, our aspiration should be that content made out of India is consumed by audiences everywhere who are not necessarily Indians. So we are still waiting for our Squid Game moment or our Narcos moment. I think that moment will happen. Now it's a function of time. Now, really, honestly, now the onus is on us. I think we keep always saying that, like, when will we get a chance? Well, honestly, the chance is out there. Right? You just got to do it.
Lovely. Those are exciting times ahead. Thank you, Samir. Thank you.
Thank you so
Big
much.
fan of
Thank
your
you
work,
so
and I'm sure most people.
So, there was a question in the afternoon by a lady. She said, how do you envision storytelling in the metaverse? What are the creative, what opportunities are there for writers? How do you envision that? And, I know it's VR, AR and all that, but storytelling.
Actually, honestly, what is the metaverse?
Don't spin it around.
The metaverse currently is in Mark's head, so we are waiting for it to take a life of its own. There used to be something in the early 2000s, if you remember, called Second Life, right? Which came out, and that was probably ahead of its time. It got to 4-5 million users globally, but didn't take off. Now this new thing is supposed to be that you have your alternative digital avatar and you live in that world. What is storytelling going to be for that? I don't know. It's going to be what the versions that we seem to understand now is connected to you leading your own life in an alternate universe. So you are going to write your story as you go along with some sort of guidelines and parameters. About other things, like VR and AI and how is all of that going to be immersive experiences. I think gaming is already doing a lot of it. So if you really play some of these high-end games, they are already telling stories, and they tell very, very good stories, and they have zillions of options of how these games can play out. So
But are you also, when you're thinking, are you thinking about universes whenever you're writing, whenever you're creating, and how you could use that in the metaverse going forward? Because the NFTs and all of that is going to be monetized as monetizable assets.
See, I mean, we keep hearing every day somebody's announcing something or the other about, this is the metaverse, right? About some movie or some show. I think there are really more marketing and promotional gimmicks at this stage. It's not really a thing. Even all these NFTs and all of that these are very early days. We are feeling really good about it. I think the Jack Dorsey tweet, the one that got sold for some 4.9 billion and now getting resold for $30,000. So it's lesser, 20,000.
$480 or something initially.
Okay, it went to 30,000. Even then, it's far cry from 5 million.
Absolutely.
But so I think these are all early days. For now, we are still telling stories. I think we've got a lot of headwind here to tell great stories, to make great content, to make better movies, to do all of that. We'll catch up with.
Not worry about the metaverse.
I don't think so. It's very far away from us now.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So thank you very much
Hi.
for a very crisp and transparent conversation. And as an applause, you definitely need an applaud, and you've already got it. A small question from you, sir. As a new producer, as a new entrepreneur, we should be focusing more on making web series or an independent film without a branded actor, because it's going to be my new venture.
But you can do both. I think if you're making a smaller film, then you got to just think through your release strategy as to where this is going to end up. So if it's a film with a smaller actor and unbranded actor, as you say, then you're mostly going to look for a platform release. Yes. So then that your economics must sort of drive that to start with. Just one thing I've learned about this whole films on platforms is that what drives platforms are separate sort of motivations. So they're looking for new customers. They're looking, to get some noise, create some, stuff around it. That's what they're looking to do. So you must ask yourself whether a smaller independent film with unbranded actors is going to deliver on that. So there is this one theory that, it's a good story and it must be told. Then the other one, of course, is when should it be told, how should it be told, and at what price? So I think you've got to just figure that. Series sometimes becomes simpler because then series is something which is as a format more acceptable, that it will have an ensemble cast. It will be produced in that manner. So film is always a challenge. But yeah, I mean,
If as an entrepreneur, we come to you guys as a decent story and with a full planning, would you entertain us?
yes, of course. That's why I was saying that, the more planning you've done, the simpler my life becomes. So that will be really good, and then we can move faster.
So you've already had an applaud, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, both of you. And it was really a crisp and thought-provoking session for all of us by the two industry stalwarts. Can we have a huge, huge round of applause for both of them? Can we just have you in the front for the photo op, please? And I would like to take the honor to invite Mr. Anil Vanwari on stage to please felicitate our esteemed panelists and great speakers, I must say.